You might be stuck financially because of your high salary, not in spite of it. Not only does a big income fail to create financial peace all by itself, it actively hides the reasons you don't have it in the first place. Here's the proof. 41% of households making $300,000 to $500,000 a year live paycheck to paycheck. That's a larger percentage than families making $50,000 to $100,000 a year. That's right. The people making more are doing worse than the people making less. And if you make something like $200,000 a year, my guess is you've probably already felt this in your own life. The money is flowing in, but the financial peace is nowhere to be found. And there are 3 reasons why. You've got a blind spot where you least expect it, you've got a volume problem, and you've been asking yourself the wrong question. As a YNAB coach, I sit with people nearly every week who make this kind of money and face these exact 3 problems. And by the end of this video, you'll understand what all 3 of those problems mean and which one you can fix right now. Let's start with the blind spot. You probably have savings. You probably have real savings, the kind of cushion most people dream about having. But those savings are creating a financial blind spot. A household I worked with had 6 figures in cash sitting in savings, but they were stressed out of their minds because they noticed that that savings balance was decreasing every month, and they couldn't figure out why. As they got better and better at using YNAB, they discovered they were spending a little bit more each month than their active income was bringing in. And so they had to hit up that savings account every month to cover the difference. This is a pattern I watch happen on coaching calls time after time. There are no big alarms going off. There are no credit cards getting declined. No single month is ever forcing a reckoning of some kind. But subconsciously, they know something is wrong, and it eats away at them from the inside. And when they finally see it, it can be crushing because their spending has slowly been outrunning their income, and their substantial savings cushion absorbed all the evidence that that was happening. Somebody making $50,000 a year finds this out in 1 month. The account hits 0 and reality shows up immediately. You get to postpone that feedback for months or even years sometimes. And while that might sound like a luxury, it's actually a blind spot that's costing you thousands of dollars. And here's how you can know if this is happening to you. If you've got a savings cushion, ask yourself, what is this money for? If you can't get more specific than it's just in case or this is just my savings, then dipping into it is never going to feel like the trade-off that it actually is. So that's the first reason your big salary isn't buying you financial peace. You worked so hard to build up a huge buffer of savings, but you never decided what it was for. So it became a blind spot that conceals your overspending. And although you might not be able to put your finger on why, it leaves you feeling uneasy and unconfident about your financial progress. The second reason is that you've got a volume problem. What I mean is the sheer volume of money and transactions moving through a high-income household easily outpaces anyone's ability to keep up. You might have 2 partners spending in the same household across multiple accounts and credit cards. You might have kids spending out of their own accounts, subscriptions you forgot you had, auto pay is quietly doing its thing. And maybe you even have people spending money on your behalf, like a nanny or an assistant running the household with an expense account. I know that not everyone in this income range has a nanny or an assistant, but I'd argue that almost everyone at this income has a high transaction volume. One client I worked with was among the highest earners I've ever coached. He was also one of the smartest people I've ever met. His financial fundamentals were solid, meaning he was consistently spending less than he made. And yet he still felt like his money was out of control and he was completely buried by the constant fire hose of transactions. It was just so much to keep up with. And here's the biggest mistake I see that absolutely cripples people dealing with this particular problem. In an effort to find some sense of control over their spending, almost without fail, every person I meet with in this situation reaches for the wrong fix, which is to track their expenses even harder. They spend way too much time agonizing over which category every single transaction needs to go into. It's like trying to count raindrops in a storm. Over and over again, I watch people open YNAB, spend 10 or 20 minutes trying to categorize and approve hundreds of transactions, many of which were generated by other household members, give up and never come back again. And I've learned through my experience working with these households that you don't actually get the peace and control you're after by fixating on which category every single dollar is going to. But don't worry, there's good news here. You get control by figuring out what your money is for. And I don't mean what it's literally for. Zoom out. Try asking the question this way. What problem is this money solving for you? Do you really need to know that the nanny's Costco transaction was for paper towels, Honey Nut Cheerios, and tinned fish? Or do you need to know that those dollars provided you with a stocked kitchen, fed children, and a Saturday morning you got back? That's the same bill read two different ways. In the first way, it reads as micromanagement or maybe even guilt. Money is leaving without your direct permission. In the other way, it's a receipt for everything you don't have to do yourself. One of a million fewer things to think about. Maybe it's worth it, maybe it isn't, but now you're actually choosing. Once you start to really understand what your money is actually for, what you're buying with that money, the whole picture comes back into focus. Because financial peace comes from spending your money with purpose and intention, not from surveilling it after it has left the station. So that's the second reason your big salary isn't buying you financial peace. Your success increased the complexity of your life. And now the very thing that makes you feel accomplished is exactly what makes your money so hard to follow. And look, none of this makes you irresponsible. On the contrary, you lived on less than you made. That was right. You delegated and outsourced. That was smart. Your money isn't out of control because you're spending it wrong. It feels out of control because a high income makes the purpose of your money harder to see. Your savings cushion hides overspending. The high transaction volume hides the big picture. But the third reason is even sneakier than both of those because it's not about the amounts. It's about the question you're asking when you spend. So of course, this brings us to the third reason. You've been asking yourself the wrong question. At the moment you buy something, the only question you ask is, can I afford this? It feels responsible. It's the question a careful person asks. You're standing at the register or the checkout online, your finger is hovering over the buy button, and you're doing your due diligence. But think about this for a second. How can you accurately answer that question in the heat of the moment? You don't actually have enough information to make a good decision. And when you make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, the answer to, can I afford this, comes out yes anyway, almost always. A question that always gets the same answer is not a decision, it's a rubber stamp. So every purchase gets approved in isolation. One at a time, each one seems perfectly reasonable. Meanwhile, the question that actually matters never gets asked. What am I not going to buy because I am buying this? If you never ask that, there's nothing to weigh the purchase against, so you never get to make a concrete trade-off. But make no mistake, you're still making one. The trade-off you make over and over again is the dopamine hit of the purchase in exchange for the continuous low-grade money stress that you hate so much. There's a tie-in here with one of my favorite books of all time, Getting Things Done by David Allen. Writing about time and productivity, he says, there is always more to do than you can do, and you can only do one thing at a time. The key is to feel as good about what you're not doing as about what you are doing at that moment. And money works exactly the same way. There will always be more to buy than you can buy. But every dollar can only be spent once. Real financial peace comes from feeling as good about what you are not buying as about what you are buying. And the only way to do that is to have decided in advance what all of your money is for. So that every time you say yes to a purchase, you know exactly what you're saying no to. So if you find yourself struggling with one or more of these three problems, the quickest way to get from where you are to where you want to be is to do whatever it takes to answer one question. What is your money for? When you can answer that question with confidence, your blind spot will be gone. You'll feel at peace about that fire hose of transactions, and you'll never regret your spending again because you'll know Beforehand, what you won't be doing instead. I know all about this firsthand because I answer this question with my own money every single payday. And in this video right here, I go over some of the real trade-offs I'm making right now as I navigate the aftermath of a sizable financial setback in my own life. So if you want to see this question doing its work, you can watch it right here.